Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a new episode of the Metal Meltdown. Just one more itsy bitsy teensy weensy little fucking reminder that I am hosting a live heavy metal Super Smash Bros. Tournament right here on this channel today at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And don't worry, if you can't make it to the live stream while it's happening, the entire thing will be archived here on the Metal Meltdown the following day. Although, it's way more fun to tune in while it's fucking happening. Cool shit does tend to happen during these streams. Alright, I've spent enough time talking about myself and my fucking bullshit. Let's talk about this new Alien Weaponry album. Tangaroa is the sophomore studio album from New Zealand heavy metal trio Alien Weaponry. Hailing primarily from Waipu in Auckland, New Zealand, all three members of the band are descendant of New Zealand's indigenous Maori people. And this is not something I bring up as a fun little piece of trivia or information. This is something I bring up because it actively plays a role in the type of music Alien Weaponry write and perform. The music is very tribal. There is influence from indigenous culture and music weaved throughout Alien Weaponry's DNA. The lyrics themselves are often sung in the Maori Polynesian language, and the songs often detail historical events and issues that are relevant to the Maori people. For instance, the song Raupatu, taken from the band's debut album, is about land confiscations by the New Zealand colonial government in the 1800s and the legislation of 1863 that allowed it to happen. It's genuinely hard and perhaps even disingenuous to pinpoint the band to any particular genre label like groove metal or alternative metal, but at this current moment, I'd feel comfortable describing the band's sound as a cross between late 90s Sepultura and some of the more progressive endeavors and ambitions of very early Gojira. With all this in mind, it should not at all be shocking to hear that I've been pretty excited for this album. I've been very interested to see how the band would expand upon this sound, how they would mature and refine it, how they would make it more provocative, more spicy, more funky, what new influences and ideas would be brought into the fray. Which is why I gotta say right off the bat, I'm actually really disappointed in this record. It's by no means terrible. There are still a lot of really cool fucking ideas and concepts, but with all due respect, cool ideas and concepts don't really mean anything if you can't develop them into really exciting and engaging music. And unfortunately, I do not feel that Alien Weaponry have done that. A lot of the music is just really repetitive and really bland. It's a lot of very repetitive guitar chugging. It's a lot of the same angular, groove-laden rhythmic patterns over and over again. The album lacks a lot of really dynamic and memorable hooks and melodies. A lot of the longer and more ambitious cuts can often feel somewhat sloppy and incohesive, as if they've been crudely stitched together. And the entire album is just way too long, on top of the fact that almost every single cut on this album would benefit from having at least a minute's worth of fat trimmed off. Alien Weaponry make the foolish decision to include radio edits of all the singles from this album on the back end of this, bringing what should be a roughly 50-minute album to a 90-minute runtime. And before someone says it, no, I'm not talking about some deluxe collector's edition. I'm talking about the standard edition. I'm talking about the version of this album that you will find on Spotify, on Bandcamp, on any other digital platform. The version of the album that you will buy in stores. For some reason, an entire third of it is dedicated to edited versions of material that you've already heard on the album. Now, does this mean the entire album itself is now a waste of time? Not necessarily. The stories and concepts are interesting enough that they can keep you invested, and it's worth noting that the amount of passion and energy coming from Alien Weaponry is unfucking matched anywhere in this genre. There is an absurd amount of energy and passion coming out of every orifice of this fucking record. And that inherently kind of gets you motivated, kind of gets you pumped, even when the songs themselves aren't necessarily that interesting or engaging. But that, of course, brings us back to the major issue with this record. The songs just aren't very interesting or engaging. The song Hatu Patu, for instance, sports some incredibly generic and ham-fisted grooves that are quite monotonously repeated throughout the entire track. Admittedly, the chorus on this track is probably the strongest on the entire album, but the song as a whole still feels like a really crappy, early Derek Green Sepultura cut. You've also got the title track, Tangaroa, which wastes most of its time meandering on some very generic and ineffective groove metal before throwing out an incredibly lazy breakdown, then transitioning into a very sloppy barrage of Gojira-esque percussive beatdowns. Ultimately, though, it's the English-sung tracks like Bad, Crooked Monsters, and especially Unforgiving that are the creme de la crap of Tangaroa. While I appreciate the darker and more introspective lyrics, the songwriting, the songcraft itself is just fucking garbage. The aforementioned Unforgiving in particular is without question the worst song on this entire album. Everything about this just feels really sloppy and lazy and underdeveloped. Like, there are some kind of grungy, angsty soundscapes in the very beginning that the band spends a lot of time meandering and drolling on before then trying to transform it into, like, some kind of progressive groove metal with a lot of breakdowns and a lot of rhythmic snaps, but eventually it just kind of sounds like a clusterfuck of, like, Kurt Cobain and Lamb of God at their absolute fucking worst. The singing in particular is honestly just really grating and unappealing. It's the level of quality I expect from karaoke, not a professional studio album. There's a part of me that honestly wants to give this a 1.5 out of 5, because there's just so much about this album that is just really not that well thought out. But I'm gonna settle for a very, 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 very low 2 out of 5. I think there are enough interesting ideas and concepts and enough strong performances, excluding some of the vocal stuff, to keep you invested, especially if you do love alien weaponry already. But for my tastes, I don't know, I just feel like so much of what makes this band so unique is still currently so underdeveloped. There's clearly a lot of work that needs to be done on the production, on the songwriting, and on the musicianship. I would honestly still recommend giving the album a shot, because I know that this is a really popular album right now from a really popular band right now. And who knows, maybe you'll get more out of it than me. It's unique enough that that's a legitimate possibility, but as I've made clear, I think I'm looking for something just a little bit more structured from alien weaponry. I see all the individual ingredients and all the individual spices, and it's appetizing, but the final product is not what it could be, not what it should be. I don't really feel like repeating myself, and I've got to go get ready for the live stream, so let's just wrap this up. 2 out of 5, a lot of great ideas, but unfortunately, not so great execution. Oh well. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be, so what do you think? Do you like this album? Do you not like this album? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.